Hi, I'm Eric Friedman. I'm the executive director of the Mad River Valley Chamber of Commerce, and we're here with Tailgate Talks. And our guest today is
Weed is goats, especially given the distribution of knotweed. If we could graze cows like Kenyans does, we wouldn't have knotweed. If in the DeFreeze, both of those farmers have a lot of land. There's no knotweed on that land because it's well grazed, but we're not going to be able to graze cows on every parcel. So goats is the next best alternative.
that's really interesting. So, tell me about like how you selected the sites for where the goats are, and not just necessarily the goats, but the whole knotweed effort generally.
So um, we primarily work on town lands or along the river because that's where it's or along the roads.
Right.
We will work occasionally on private lands um, and ask them to do a donation, but it's mostly to show people how to do it themselves. It's not that hard. It's not technically difficult. It isn't risky, but they sometimes need a little help to get started and understand what to do. So we will do that with private individuals. But the goats was a different thing. You need enough land that's infected to justify bringing a herd in, and
Mhm.
our number right now is something like a half acre.
So you'll have. Well, I mean, how many goats do we have here in the herd?
There's 8 mature goats, and then there's the crop of babes that came from those does. So there's like another 12 or 13 baby goats.
And are they? I don't know what the right word is. Are we leasing them, renting them, or
Okay,
how's it work?
so the way the deal worked was the Tri-Town Conservation Commission said, okay, if we could get a goat herder to bring goats, we think we can afford to pay for this activity. So we made an offer, and the goat herder said,
So wait a
okay.
minute, you guys got a good deal on a used goat.
Well, I don't know. We got a deal. We got a deal. Uh, and the end result is she was able to buy these goats
Hmm.
and rented another 50 goats.
Oh wow, so there's that many goats here in the valley right
Yeah,
now.
yeah. There's the other 50 are across the river from the LaRue Swimming Hole on a
Mhm.
property called the Fairgrounds, which was
Right,
newly acquired from by Waitsfield,
right.
which had a large field that was completely knotweed. So
Hmm.
we have gotten a bunch more goats there. Now that's a nicer place because it's a big space. There's also a diverse mix of feed where they can be in knotweed sometimes and in brushy area another times, which is
Hmm.
here we didn't really have that. So here we had to bring in hay to substitute as an additional feed source for them.
So is that do they need? It's how much they can actually eat, or do they need diversity of food?
Well, yeah, they need to eat different things. Uh,
Because I wouldn't want to just eat knotweed all the time
it
personally.
turns out that they can eat something between 50-60% just knotweed.
Really?
So they would eat more than other animals of just knotweed. They relish it. It tastes good to them. And the goat herder did tests on the knotweed early on to see what they were not getting in their
Hmm.
diet. So there's actually some mineral supplement that these goats get to make sure they have a balanced diet in terms of minerals, and then in
Hmm.
terms of carbohydrates, they just got to have more stuff. Uh,
Interesting.
and so it's a
There's a lot
new
to
thing.
this.
There's a lot of new stuff here, and part of this whole project is we won't know until we try, and learning is the big part of everything we do. So there's a lot of stuff going on, and we've been luckily engaged with the UVM the Rubenstein School,
Mm-hmm.
and with the agricultural side, helping figure out a lot of these details, and also helping us think of what kind of research we should be doing so that we can do a better job.
Right, and we also have a lot of AmeriCorps volunteers this year, right? Or we in the
these,
last few years.
those have all been paid interns
Yeah.
from the Rubenstein School, not AmeriCorps. We would like to get AmeriCorps. It's a little different program.
Mm-hmm.
The Friends of the Mad River has AmeriCorps
Okay.
volunteer right now full time. We have to get our program a little bit more institutionalized before we could qualify for AmeriCorps.
Wow, that's really interesting. So when the goats start gnawing on this knotweed, are they like sheep where they'll get down to the roots, or do they only go to the ground level?
No, they only go to the ground level.
So won't
and
it just grow back?
Oh,
Or,
yes.
so what's
Oh, sure, sure. The way we're killing knotweed is it's a perennial plant. It stores its energy in the roots.
mm-hmm.
It does not seed. These are
Oh,
all
really?
female clones. All the knotweed, Japanese knotweed, is a female clone. So it has a beautiful flower, it has nectar, but it doesn't produce a viable seed.
I did not know
There are
that.
two other
Interesting.
kinds of knotweed. That's more than you need to know.
Okay.
Okay, but these don't. So it only spreads from the roots growing out or from the roots breaking off in the river and floating down and infecting a new place.
So that's why it's all throughout
That's
the
right.
riverbanks.
So
Okay.
the way we kill it is we cut the stem, rip the stem off, eat the stem,
Mm-hmm.
and then it didn't get any energy back from that. So then it has to send up a new shoot, uses more energy, and we do that. And so we will come back to these places every 3 to 4 weeks and just clean them again.
Mm-hmm.
And we do that regularly, we win.
And so, from the experience, and how long has this whole knotweed eradication effort been going on here in the valley?
So it's been going on in Warren for 6 years.
Okay.
And there's, a number of places, if you want to sort of see what it looks like when you don't have knotweed, you can just drive the Granville Gulf, you can drive Lincoln Gap, you can drive Roxbury Gap. Those places are pretty clean.
It's amazing. So what I've noticed, it's funny. I was just down on Bridge Street just
That's-
earlier, and a couple of years ago, that you could barely see the river, and now it's
So
amazing.
So the other thing we decided to do early on jointly was we will not be effective if we don't have the community behind us.
Mm-hmm.
So the community's got to be able to see what is happening.
Yeah.
So we've highlighted the major parks. So all the
Mhm.
major parks in Waitsfield and Warren are getting an extra amount of energy to clean it up. So people can come here and go like, I love the river, and I can walk,
Yeah.
where, here and Quail and Riverside, you couldn't get to the river because of the knotweed.
Right.
Now it's easily accessible and you understand the difference.
Right.
And so we're doing it here for that particular reason.
Mhm.
We need the support of the community.
That's it, and when you say community, I mean, one of the things that really struck me about this whole thing was the fact that you have all three towns involved in this. Can you tell me about how that all came about?
Well, we've been for a number of years, the Tri-Town Conservation Commissions would get together and just share stories. And everybody would present what they're doing and talk and chat. And we'd had a dinner at American Flatbread. It was really lovely. George would sponsor it, and we'd have this really great conversation. And through that, we said we should be really working on a regional basis, but really a watershed basis, because the knotweed comes up starts up high and comes down. Well, Warren's above here,
Right.
so this is
So it's your fault.
it's our fault. And now that the you can understand how knotweed spreads. It goes up in gravel trucks and it comes down in the river. So all the new infestations that we see are a result of either the floods bringing the propagules down, broken off parts, or the gravel trucks taking it up to a new yard, a new road, a new telephone pole, wherever you take gravel, you bring it with you.
So
Very
do we know where Japanese knotweed came from from the get-go?
Yeah.
How did that
So in
get here?
1780, it went from Japan and Korea to Holland. When back in the days, the exploratory days, they want all these new wild plants that they discovered. They brought them back.
So
And,
Captain Cook, it wasn't just the breadfruit, right?
right. And then from Holland went to England, and how it got to America is it's a little unknown, but
Yeah.
it got to America a long time ago, and it's
Hmm.
slowly been growing. And we are lucky in the sense that we've only had it really since the 1990. Some people, the
Yeah.
people are trying to put the dates on it. There's some examples where it really wasn't much in the way of knotweed in this valley until after the flood of '98.
It was that recent. Okay, I didn't quite realize that.
I was here in the '80s and there wasn't any knotweed.
Yeah, I don't recall it either. Just being here. Yeah, that's.
That's how fast it takes over. And if you want to see what happens when you let it go, you just got to go a little farther south
Hmm.
or down on. There isn't a river in Vermont that isn't contaminated. And a lot of people have just said, it's undoable, I can't possibly stop it. Well, then it's gone
Hmm.
at that point.
So if we don't continue this effort, I mean, is there really any hope of eradicating it completely from the watershed?
No.
There's no way that'll ever happen.
That's such a big, big task.
That's
But
a lot of goats.
but that doesn't mean you can't see your way clear of eradicating at the top of the watershed and coming down. So right now,
Oh, so we're
above,
doing the reverse.
we're starting at the top and coming down.
Right.
And these are examples of how you do it, but what the real work is happening up at the top. So the tributaries that feed the Mad, including the main stem of the Mad, above the town of Warren, are either completely cleaned or there's a few spots that are still being managed. So there is no knotweed up high in Warren that's getting into the rivers. And there's knotweed in places, people's yards, stuff like that, but it's not getting in the river. So once we start stopping it getting in the river, then we can start working down the river. And we're not that far from Warren here.
No, right? Yeah, it's right there.
And so then we stop. Here's a great story. In the flood this December, that this was underwater, and there was logs and all kinds of stuff in here.
Yeah, no, we had and the green up day. We had the big cleanup here. There was a ton of stuff.
In the spring, we came here, and there were no knotweed propagules laying on this lawn. You don't see any now. There was none. Riverside Park, they were finding 1,000 per acre of little bits of knotweed that had washed up. So between here and there, the erosion had taken out enough knotweed and deposited in that field. And in the Spalding field and other fields in Moortown, the propagules broke off and went there. But by going in the spring and picking them up, you eliminated the knotweed from growing.
Interesting.
But since we're not seeing propagules show up here as a result of flood, we're sort of protected. We got to keep doing more work, but we're not so bad. That was quite a remarkable finding, actually.
So is the whole project? It's funded by the towns.
So the towns, the town of Warren, town of Waitsfield, put money in their budget. And it used to be voted on a town meeting as a line item, and now is it part of their budget because they understand it's important, and the town had voted for it. The whole goat program was an idea that we said it's a little too experimental. We're going to go raise money privately.
Okay.
And this year we've raised just about enough money to pay for this year's goat work.
Can I ask how much? I just have a sense of what this whole project's costing.
Yeah, we set out our goal was to raise 50, which would have paid for this year and next year. So 25 a year is what we need. We're a little short of our goal at this point for this year. We need.
So folks, give to the conservation commissions.
If you can help, I mean, if this matters and if it makes sense to you, make a donation through Friends of the Mad River, and all you do is make the note invasives or goats on that donation. It goes into a special pot, and then we have a program, set of contracts with the goat herder, and it's all been worked out.
So you know what I'm going to do is I'm going to set up and I'll go like this, like right here, and I'll have it right there. It'll be on the little screen.
We'll get you a QR code.
Fancy.
Yeah, we got a QR code, how you give to this program.
Yeah, that's great. It's really amazing, and the various ways that our community comes together to support conservation and support this park is this this is a great example of why people
Well,
come to this community and why we live here and why people visit,
exactly.
and we got to take care of it. So it's things like
Exactly.
this and the Stewart MRV program and all these other things that people come together to make
And it
it
makes a
a better
difference.
place.
And this valley is different because of it.
Hmm.
It's sad to say that this level of effort isn't going everywhere. It could go everywhere.
Hmm.
And but a lot of shout out to all the town people in the valley. You're making a difference that we can make a difference.
Hmm.
I mean, we don't do this. Somebody's got to help pay for it,
Yep.
and we need money. So,
No, it's really really interesting. So, logistical question.
mm.
So in the winter, what happens to the goats?
so uh,
They eat snow?
50 of the goats are rented. So they
Because
go
we could
back
get
to
them to plow. That would be a good thing, They, rent them out on people's driveways.
I don't know about that. Anyway, this batch of goats here are going to be living in the valley this winter.
Hmm.
But the other goats are going back to their owner. So you can rent goats, which is maybe
Is the owner here in Vermont?
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. The owner of this one's up, like in Hyde Park area.
Hmm.
So I mean, there are not many goat herds in Vermont that are ready to do that, rent them out. And the goat herder here, Mary Beth and Carol, they have visions of actually building their herd up. Uh, and we were talking about 100. We didn't quite get 100 this year. I would think next year we would be talking 200.
Wow. And I think one of the really nice things about it, I mean, just seeing here the people coming
Yeah.
here today, like who doesn't love goats, right? Like
Who
they're
doesn't love
super
those
cute
goats?
and
Yeah,
kids.
yeah, yeah.
And I think when you get the kids here and you see what's going on, you start building that ethos
Right.
of understanding
Yeah.
what's at the issue at hand here.
Yeah. 5 years ago, the UVM extension agent, USDA extension agent, who was at UVM, a woman named Kimberly Hagan,
Hmm.
came and gave 2 presentations in the valley on grazing to control invasives, and
Hmm.
that was the program she was running at the time for the USDA.
Yeah.
And that's where our interest really got. Was she had a lot of information on how effective it is in managing invasives.
It's really interesting too. Is I got a call this spring from someone that was doing some at the Chamber of Commerce, and they called up asking about some research. And someone in Massachusetts that was doing some research on our efforts here,
Mhm.
and of that. And
Right.
this, I think, it's another one that.
It's a very creative community, and it has a very solid foundation. in the right ecological principles.
Mm-hmm.
And so implementing those and putting those into practice is what we're trying to do. And I think it's fully, massively supported locally, and that's such it's a huge thing for
Yeah.
us. Yeah.
No, absolutely. So, is there anything else like the viewing public should know about this program and the goats and that
Um,
we should be aware of?
well, the first thing is understand it's a work in progress.
Mm-hmm.
That we don't have all the answers, and we're not going to have all the answers, but we're going to get better and better as we go. And that this is a solvable problem, and we can just, like I say, take right through the Granville Gulf. See the
Mm-hmm.
difference between here and Granville.
Mm-hmm. That's really interesting. I think I think people need to be aware of it, and I think there's a lot of people that just sort of did throw up their hands like, this
Yeah.
is just an intractable problem, and we're not going to be able to deal
It
with
was,
it, so we're not going to even think about it.
there were some crazy attempts, early attempts,
Mm-hmm.
uh, and it wasn't well thought out and well planned. And I think now we're getting to the point where, the number of times you have to mow it is dependent on how long it's been there. Mowing is a slow process because you're still letting it grow,
Mm-hmm.
but you mow it enough, it's just like grazing it. It'll kill it.
So, and one of the things that I noticed that you're putting the cuttings up on pallets.
So,
So, like, if I cut it, is that not work?
okay, no. So, when you mow it, you create small little pieces. If you leave it on the lawn, it dries in a day or two and
Mm-hmm.
is inert.
Oh, but if it's big pieces.
But when we do the big pieces, it takes a longer time to dry out. So we stack them up, get them
Mm-hmm.
off the ground so they dry.
Mm-hmm.
And they dry and fall apart and becomes compost. But if you don't dry it, it's a very viable thing. And so, but do it regularly.
Mm-hmm.
Don't let it get ahead of you. You need to do it every 3 or 4 weeks for sure.
That's
And
cool.
there's a site, example site, over near the over near the Sugarbush Pond,
Mm-hmm.
right in the parking lot, right off the parking lot. There's a little site that's been only mowed, and now except for the fact that I mow it, you wouldn't even know it was
Mm-hmm.
there. But there's still a couple little shoots in there that need to be mowed, and
So you're doing different things at different
yeah,
sites to see how they're working and
we
what's.
smother, we mow,
Mm-hmm.
we cut, which is one technique. We rip, which is another different
Yeah.
technique. And now we have goats. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
and each site was different. Like Lincoln Gap, that was planted about 5 years before we got there. The road crew knew they planted it. They said,
Mm-hmm.
you better get up there. And that's basically just rip it out. And we don't dry much on site because
Mm-hmm.
it's so steep there.
Right,
There's
right.
a few piles that you could see, but it's mostly steep. But that's been going pretty well. It now takes us 3 man-hours a couple times a year
Mm-hmm.
to keep that clean. And it's not dead, but we will keep it down so eventually it will die.
Wow. So how many different sites are there?
Well, in Warren, we are currently active in about 180
Oh my goodness, I didn't
individual
realize
sites.
it was that many.
Yeah, individual sites.
And that's just Warren.
Yeah.
I mean, is there similar numbers in the other towns, or are you guys?
Getting there. Yeah, getting there.
Wow. I had no idea. That's really, really interesting
Because
stuff.
the way when you take the Granville Gulf.
Yeah.
Okay, the Granville Gulf had knotweed planted when they rebuilt the road after Irene.
Mm-hmm.
So what we knew, you can, if you pay any attention, you see knotweed now. You didn't see it before. Somebody brought it there. It didn't just wander in.
Mm-hmm.
Somebody brought it there. So we now map each of those sites, and you can see where the original sites were, and now you can see where they're going down the river because you can just see the river and deposit
Right.
sites. So now all that is being managed, and it takes a while, but it's happening.
And it's being documented is it with photography, or how does it get
So
documented?
we have a database.
Okay.
We have a very good GIS system now that actually UVM. Oh my God, this is huge. The Geospatial Lab at UVM agreed to take over the entire GIS program that we started. so it has a resident operation, which is phenomenal. Because none of us have the equipment to house a whole GIS system. So that's now a resident part of the geospatial lab. So we've been able to improve all the techniques for it. So we know where every site is. We have a description of the site when we started, and then there's a maintenance log. Every time you go, you log in on the maintenance log and say, I put 2 man-hours on here or whatever. So we can go back and say, that site took 4 years and 50 man-hours or whatever it is. And just keeping track of it gives us a better sense of what we're doing.
Wow, it's so much more involved than I realized. I'm so impressed with what you're doing, and I got to tell you, this is what you're doing for fun in your retirement. How you know?
Yeah. It's a little more than I thought I was going to do in my retirement, but it's fun. It's challenging. I have a technical background, so it's like, okay, I can do this. I had a biology degree. Anyways, it's interesting. And it really needs to get done, because if we weren't doing it, this whole valley would be wall to wall, not like every other place in Vermont. And I think the valley can, at some point, take some pride in saying, hey, come here, it doesn't have knotweed.
Well, on behalf of the Mad River Valley Chamber and everyone that likes to come and recreate here and live here, thank you so much.
You bet.
This is, and you've earned yourself a beer, my friend.
All right.
And we'll get some more for the rest of the team, because I know you're not doing it. Do the goats drink this stuff?
We haven't ever tested it, I wouldn't say.
Yeah, that'd be interesting. Maybe we get Sean to give a little goat juice.
Goat juice.
And I want to know if they get knotweed breath.
They probably do.
Probably, right?
Well, I've eaten enough of it to know that it does have it has a taste to itself.
And it does have some good qualities to it.
Oh yeah. Marge's program is, by the way,
Marge Keogh, right?
Keogh's program, Faced Forager, knotweed tincture. Excellent stuff.
And what's it used for?
The primary ingredient in the knotweed tincture is resveratrol, which is the source of resveratrol, the biggest source of resveratrol in the world, is an immune enhancer. So if you want your immune system to get kicked up, take a little of this. And this is exactly what helps with Lyme disease and with COVID and lots of other stuff.
So better than drinking bleach?
I recommend Marge.
Thank you again so much. It was great having you. And we'll get you on the tailgate. Maybe we'll talk about wind power one of these days.
Anytime.
Great. Thanks again.